Welcome to Cereno Scientific's Capital Markets Day. My name is Tove Bergenholt, and I'm the Head of Investor Relations and Communications here. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all to an event filled with where we'll talk about the business, operations, and our strategic focus.
There's also sort of disruptions in the sort of the capital markets. But actually, when we look at what happened in 2025, we saw 46 new medical entities approved by the FDA and 18 BLAs. So in fact, that was on a par with what we would usually see. So there wasn't the sort of the disruption in the approvals process that people were concerned about. But what was really important was of those new approvals, 67% of them were focused on rare diseases. And that was a big jump up from what we had seen previously. It only in sort of 2021 did we see it go over 50%. And the thinking was, well, is this a new benchmark or is this just an outlier? But actually, some of the noises that are coming out of the FDA is rare diseases is actually a place that they really want to double down on. Also, what's worth looking at is the top 10 best-selling drugs, all getting revenues of over $10 billion each. 8 of those are going to go off patent by 2032. So the total of those top 10 is 175 billion. 145 billion dollars of that is going to have loss of exclusivity by 2032. And therefore, the pharmaceutical industry really has to sort of get its act together to replenish those potential lost revenues. So therefore, there was an expectation there would be sort of M&A and lots of licensing deals. On the M&A front, we didn't see many big blockbuster M&As taking place. There were about 4 or 5. But what we did see is we saw a lot of smaller deals as again they're backfilling and sort of adding on, so they're called bolt-on acquisitions. The other thing, though, that is more important is on licensing. We saw record number of deals done where pharmaceutical companies would in-license assets from biotechs. The total value of those deals was $292.5 billion. That was a record. So you can sort of see, in fact, there's a lot of activity.
The human body and why you get this sickness and what you can do about it, it has propelled me into this sector and to various roles within it. So that's the background. And I think if you have that curiosity and are fortunate enough to eventually work with the best thought leaders in the sector, if you, as we spoke about earlier, if you have a good balance between your mouth and your ears, and especially focus on your ears when you meet these people, you can learn a lot. So I think that being able to work with thought leaders, but then again, having a holistic mind to connect the dots. So if you want to be disruptive, you have to be a pioneer. If you want to be a pioneer, you have to be able to connect the dots and run with the opportunity, create gravity towards your vision, and be ahead of the curve. So I should also say welcome to all of you here, shareholders and others, analysts and so on. It's a pleasure that for us that you are coming here and listening to our story and our efforts to drive this vision. Without shareholders and investors and long-term investors, you can't do this journey. So thank you for being here. I will go through a few slides in our vision to help patients like this and also patients that we have here in the room today, and you will hear more about that later. So you might know that we are based in Gothenburg, in Mölndal actually, at GoCo, which is a healthcare research center that's fairly new, established a few years back. We have lived there soon 2 years. We have one part of the floor, I think you can see it there, if it's the first under GoCo. or the third, I don't remember now. But the company was formed 2012, and we are pioneering the effort of epigenetic modulation into, as we nowadays say, cardiopulmonary diseases, so heart and lung diseases. We are pursuing this HDAC inhibition, which is a new way of utilizing HDAC inhibition into these diseases. Never been done before.
So what is pulmonary arterial hypertension? It's a rare disease. It's a very, very serious disease. It's fatal if you don't give treatment. And currently, despite quite a lot of drug discovery, the unmet need is still very high, with median survival around 7 years. There is no cure for PH, except if you perform lung transplantation, which is per se another problem for the patients. So it's very, very difficult to diagnose PH at an early stage. And when the disease has evolved to right heart failure, it's much more simple to diagnose, but it's too late because the patients have a very high risk of death. And we really need to develop new solutions to improve outcomes in pulmonary arterial hypertension. So you remember the therapies targeting nitric oxide, endothelin-1, prostacyclin, and now TGF-beta. And these pathways are well taken care of. We have now algorithm of treatment. And for you, what matters is risk, 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 risk. Everywhere we measure risk, and we have a treatment goal. It is low risk, and in my country currently, despite the fact that we have a network of expert centers sharing knowledge and guidelines, less than half of the patients are at treatment goal. So there is room for improvement, of course, and this is a national course of PH. With therapies, sometimes we slow decline, sometimes we obtain a small disease improvement, sometimes we obtain, as in cancer, partial remission, complete remission. We almost never reach cure. It almost never occurs. So there is a lot of room, and we need disease modifier.
So my name is Hal Skåra. I'm actually Norwegian. And my journey started in 2003. I started becoming short of breath. So there was no indication before this happening that I would have a disease like this. So I just started noticing that I was short of breath. And I went to the doctor and I complained. And I said, I think something is wrong because I'm short of breath. So he took a lot of tests, blood tests and all other kind of tests, and everything was normal. So I was just told to go back home. Everything was okay. Continue to exercise, and things would probably be okay. But I started to get gradually worse. And after 2 years more, I realized something is seriously wrong, because then I started having problems going up steps and things like this. So then I was sent to the main hospital in Oslo, and that was what I needed. Just after 2 days, they found the diagnosis that I had this disease, pulmonary arterial hypertension. And the reason for this disease they could not find. So it's called idiopathic. And I was told probably as the years go by, you will see and the reason will show up eventually. And now it's been 21 years and still there is no reason. So the reason for this, I don't know. And my first reaction was angry. I was angry at my body because I had treated my body very well. I did everything I should by living a very healthy lifestyle. And this is the response of the body to give me such a serious disease. A life-threatening chronic disease that could not be cured. And I had been reading on the internet, and I knew that if this was the disease I got, it would be very serious for me. And what I read on Dr. Google was that 2.8 years was what was expected after the diagnosis. So, as I said, I was 46 at that point, and I thought I would not be able to be 50 years old. I had a family with 2 teenage sons, and I remember we were in the hospital room after the right heart catheterization. This is how you diagnose this disease. They go in with instruments inside your heart and measure. And we were sitting there, me and my wife and the oldest son, and the doctor came back and he told the diagnosis. And my wife immediately started crying. And I don't know why, but the first thing that came into my mind was, will I be able to be a grandfather one day, to live long enough to be a grandfather? And the doctor said, oh, why not? But then I saw he looked at my oldest son to see how old he was. So I knew this is serious business. And the first unmet need is that it takes way too long to get diagnosed. And the problem with this disease is that you get the symptoms are so diffuse, that you're short of breath. Well, if you're out of shape or if you have asthma or whatever, you're short of breath. And you need to go on the operating table to get the real good diagnosis. So the second unmet need, I would say, is we really need a true disease-modifying drug. Because as we heard today, the drugs are not true modifying drugs. So whenever I hear about a new company, I hear about a new pathway, and I hear the words disease-modifying, I get very excited. And all the patients get very excited. Because then there is a potential that maybe you can have a drug that can reverse all the things that's happened inside your lungs. And then the third unmet need, and this I often see when I travel around to different associations in the world, many of them, they don't get access to medication. So we are very lucky in Norway, Sweden, and so on with the universal healthcare. But if you go to Eastern Europe, if you go to South America, etc., they don't get access to all the available medication. So my plea to a new company delivering drugs to the market, please help as many patients as you can.
So, CS1, and this is the aim that we want to show also. We want to slow, halt, and reverse PH disease progression. And as you know, and as we have shared over the last few months, besides the preclinical data that we have also seen some very promising signals in the Phase IIa trial that we have shown and shared with you over the last few months. What we saw there was, number one, and this was, of course, the primary endpoint. We achieved a very good safety and tolerability profile, which is, again, naturally very important that patients can take the drug and tolerate it. Besides that, and this also got us very exciting, we saw some signals which we also shared with you. One, and you know that this is a very important one, how is the right heart functioning? Keeping in mind that this trial that we did in the Phase IIa was only for 3 months, and even in this short period, we saw these improvements. Besides that, we also saw signals in improved quality of life. Again, keeping in mind this was over a relatively short period of 3 months only. That is the revealed risk score. And there we saw an improvement in a large proportion of patients by 1 point. And we had also translated what it means, and it is also published in the literature, that if patients over 3 months improve by 1 point in the revealed risk score, that translates into approximately 23% improvement in mortality within 12 months.
So the phase 2b trial is going to be approximately 125 patients in approximately 10 countries, so globally. And we want to start with the first patient before the summer, so in Q2, and that's going to go extend up to top line in 2028. So far, all the primary endpoints were for 6 months, based on the vasodilation, but we think because it's disease modifying, and we are, of course, also taking into consideration the latest publications, ideas, we are going to extend it to 9 months and going to look at the primary endpoint after 9 months. That means we're going to look at the pulmonary vascular resistance, which is determined through the right heart catheter. And in addition to that, we are first of all looking after 9 months. So this is where we are going to have the primary endpoint. We are then going to look at that primary endpoint once all the patients have completed the 2 right heart catheters and we have the completion of all those patients. And after that, we're going to follow up the patients further. On the one hand, we're going to include, again, something very innovative. No one has done that before, that we are going to also include a period of so-called medication withdrawal, which the FDA wants to show that we have disease modification. We are going to be the first ones to do that in a phase 2b trial. We will be looking at the primary endpoint. We will be looking at how the things are aligning, how the patients are doing. And please keep in mind, the most important thing in a phase 2b trial is always the congruency of the data. That means, are all the major signals and parameters that we're measuring pointing in the right direction? That is what everyone looks at. That is what the authorities look at. That is what patients, of course, look at. That's what payers look at. That is what also defines the commercial success of a drug. So we're going to look at all of that.
Let's talk a little about what kind of company is Cereno. It's a biotech. Who develops new drugs to patients today? Who is doing that? The innovation part, the pioneering efforts. It's not pharma. Biotech such as Cereno does 80% of the new pioneering efforts, innovative drugs. Around 14% of that is listed as coming from laboratories, but most of that goes into biotech. So biotech actually innovates 70% of the new drugs that eventually reach the market. Pharma, on the other hand, launches 80% of all drugs. What happens between those two things? A deal is made. I mentioned this before, so we were recently at the biggest healthcare conference, the most important one every year is at it's called JP Morgan. It's a bank, but the conference is called JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, invitation by JP Morgan. What they're looking for is first in class, significant patient value potential. They're looking for a small molecule, primarily, less complicated. They're looking for clinical late stage compounds that are in that phase. They're looking for repeatable biology, multiple indications. Cereno's fit with this, first in class, significant patient value, disease modification, small molecule, CS1 and CS014 are both small molecules, clinical late stage, both will soon be in phase 2. One is in phase 2b. Repeatable biology, multiple indications possible to expand to, yes. Now, if you are in this space, PH, there's a big ticket deal potential here. The last one that was done with Merck was, I mentioned 11 billion. They bought the whole company, but the majority of the company's value was in sotatercept. So there is an analyst estimate on Cereno's deal value here. So you heard the 2.83 billion penetration, that's sales. This is deal value. Expected deal value on a successful 2B trial is around $2 billion US. That's 20 billion Swedish. That would be nice for investors and owners. The people sitting here are some of the majority owners in the company. So look here, Cereno delivered on all fundamental R&D milestones for value inflections last year. I showed this before. We tripled our analyst market valuation currently. What happened on the retail market? And this goes back all the way to June 16 when we actually launched the company on the stock market. What has happened over the years? We uplisted in July 23 to Nasdaq First North. We went up to 3 billion in value. We have grown the shareholder base over various milestones that we have developed the company. Since May of last year, despite delivering a number of fundamentals, the market cap of the company and the share price has gone down. So I don't think Cereno is the only company experiencing that, but it's sometimes frustrating when you deliver fundamentals for a company, executive leadership, and also for shareholders, that the valuation and share price of the company goes down. But that's the reality we are facing. What happened? We grew the share price growth with 30% last year, the market cap growth with 30% last year, and total number of shareholders with 30% last year, if I abbreviate a little. That happened last year. We delivered the fundamentals. So there is this gap between analyst valuation on fundamentals and a small retail market that is capital restrained, such as Sweden, for the company. And we are valued at 1/3 today. So this has happened during this time, 23 to 25, 1 billion to 2 billion. There was 100% growth, but the fundamentals was 300% growth. So we want to pursue our vision. That's looking ahead. We will continue to drive our vision and execute as well as we can. We think we're well set up to execute. We will continue to deliver on fundamentals. We will and want to grow our shareholder base, the share price, and the market cap, as we have done historically until now. We will make a deal with pharma. We don't know exactly when. I think it will be this year. That's it. Stay on the journey.